Affordable Space Adventures is like a sci-fi stealth, more of a simulation game, because we have it's pretty much like the setting is that you're captain of the spaceship, and this is your gamepad is actually your cockpit. So you fly your spaceship, but you also have to, maneuver your engines and properties on the small screen, on the gamepad screen. So right now, I am in the first level, but it's a crash scene. So we don't have an intro yet, but the story is a little bit that you were on the way in this very cheap spaceship that you have rented, and you were on the way to the Hawaii-like planet to explore it. But something happened and the mothership spaceship crashed, so you're like in this unknown world and you have to figure out your way. So because I have crashed, all my systems are down and self-repairing, so I slowly kind of like in a way learn them, but also slowly they show up. So right now my system says that my scanner is repaired 33%, and my scanner is right now just a light that I can like move around and take a look at the environment. So this is a very dark world, so this light is kind of helping me out, but I can't really do anything. And now I'm getting another message that my fuel engine has repaired 50%. So if I turn on my fuel engine, that's my fuel engine is working, so I can like actually move around. And a lot of the atmosphere, the feeling of the game, it's the sound as well. So this fuel engine is a cheap one that I actually, even from the sound and all this smoke that it makes, I can kind of really feel how cheap it is. That's part of the setting. So here, my dead friends. I need to move on. This is not looking like a place I want to stay at. So it's as I say, like we start with a very kind of dark world. We want to put the player in a setting where it can really feel that it's a hostile planet, and you really, understand that moving around and using the flashlight is a very important part of your gameplay. So there is like a kind of a slow beginning where you just explore and you move very terribly, like you shake all the time because your engine is still like not really full power. So it's a little bit about a feeling of being like lost and not capable to do much, like you really don't have control over your spaceship. It's really shaky, and everything looks a bit scary. So it really gives you the whole point is to give you a bit of a claustrophobic feeling of like I'm so tiny and everything is dark and weird, I don't know where I am. So it starts very slow in that way. So it's all about exploring this beautiful atmosphere and caves that we have, and then there's not much else to do but to explore, or maybe avoid these terrible rocks. And another thing that I could mention now while I'm actually while I'm having an easy time is that this game is also multiplayer, and because we kind of realized very quickly in the production, I'm also like Knapno Games. We developed our previous VU game is Spin the Bottle Bumpy's Party, which is only multiplayer, and this is like super different experience than what we are usually creating. But then our edge is still there. Like we really want all the games that we produce to have some sort of local multiplayer feel. So very early in the process, when we were talking about this game, we came up with the idea of like, oh, what about trying out to split the controls, and actually, I don't know, try local multiplayer. And turned out to be so easy. You can like, give one player the movement of the spaceship, another one the movement of the flashlight, and actually have a third one having like only the screen and turn on, turn off stuff and adjust things. So right now we actually have like a local multiplayer game on a zero budget. So we just kind of increased the amount of controllers that it supports. So okay, so now we're getting to something interesting. So this block I can't push because I'm not that powerful, but I got another engine, property of the engine repaired, which is the fuel thruster, which controls how fast and how powerful I am. So if I increase it a lot, I can actually push this thing, but it kind of produces too much heat and I get warnings on my secondary screen. So it just overheats the system. So most of the systems like have like this kind of a middle range where it's like the optimal, but then you have to sometimes stress them to pass some puzzles. And it's all about as an engineer or like the captain here, like kind of trying to keep an eye on this interface here that you have, which is your control panel. So right now, for example, as you can see, like I learned system by system, and this is the entire first world, or a couple of the first levels are all about that. But then later on, it kind of drops you to like more puzzles that make sense, or like that you really have to learn. So here I'm getting a mass generator, which if I increase my mass, I sink, as you can see there. So, and this is very helpful if you want to make yourself heavier, or in this case water. I can use a thruster because, you know, it's all these puzzles are thought also physics based, like okay, a thruster fuel engine needs air, so I can't really use it. But then if I increase my mass, I can sink. But I can turn, but I can't really, you can see the bubbles, I can't move in a direction because I need air to really accelerate. But then I can just sink. And then when I get in the bottom, I can decrease my weight again, and I can go up again. So the entire first world is like this. But I can also jump into later. Should I jump to a later level and show you some more action? Like that could be, I think, more fun. Because it's going to be slightly more interesting for sure. So I'll start from World 2. So World 2 is where you actually get two engines. I can kind of like, I think we're going to end up having like 7 worlds, but they're just linked like gradually. You don't feel them as a player, but there is slightly differences and progressive kind of feeling visually of the worlds. So here I have learned how to use actually a scanner and a little flash, flare. Like the flare is this, so I can just shoot this useless flare, and I can scan by pressing like the shoulder buttons, 2 different shoulder buttons. So I can scan this guy and I can see his range. So this is most of the puzzles in this way. I can see his range. Okay, if I go in his range, he can see me. Up. So okay, he doesn't like me, obviously, because if I see it on my second screen is that I have a warning sign which says that the heat, I'm producing too much heat. He can see me because I'm producing too much heat. If I click on the system, it will tell me which system produces the heat, and every time I reduce the system, I actually reduce the heat on screen, and then I can I can drive very slowly and pass these guys without seeing me. Or else I can turn on an electric engine, because electric engine doesn't actually produce heat, and I can fly a bit more normally and still not be seen by those guys. Oops, but this guy actually doesn't like any sounds, but sound is like dynamic. So as long as I keep slow, the sound doesn't increase that fast, so I can actually pass the puzzle by just doing that. But there is always multiple ways of passing puzzles. So as like on the 2 engines and different engines. So for example, this one is like a wind tunnel. So I'm not that powerful, and I can use a higher thruster on the electric engine, but that's also not powerful enough. In general, just the electric engine is not as powerful as fuel engine, for example. So if I do the same with a fuel engine, I could maybe pass, maybe increase the mass and the thruster. And so I have a heat stress. I'm really stressing okay, but I did it. So I can see here like with a warning how much heat I'm producing, and I'm about to die. I also get like really sound warnings as well. So that's kind of like and as I say, like how much mass or how much thruster you put to pass the level, it's also very like something where you explore and you find out on the way. And that's kind of the core fun part of the game, I would say. learning this and mastering it as like the spaceship captain. So it kind of also gives you a feeling, the game gives you a feeling of upgrades, but you don't upgrade your spaceship, but you get like new systems all the time, and that kind of makes you feel more powerful and more cool. So for example, I got this decelerator now, and the decelerator like just kind of makes me, like if I don't have any decelerator turned on and I'm on the electric engine, then I can glide. So I'm not touching anything, but I'm just gliding. So for example, this enemy that I have here doesn't like electricity, but every time I use thruster, I produce electricity. If I don't use thruster, I don't produce electricity. So I can just like use a bit and just glide. And then I can use some anti-gravity to drop. Now I'm gonna die. I should have dropped before I reached the surface, basically. But so now if I use the thruster, so he doesn't like any thruster. So that's kind of how I would pass the level by, for example, gliding over. So decrease some decelerator, glide, and then try to use the anti-gravity to drop a little bit. And then you use the accelerator again. And the thing is that this is something you kind of keep learning and keep playing with, and it just gets a bit harder and harder, but we're hopefully trying to develop a game where you actually where you actually hopefully, learn all these things on the way, so it doesn't become overwhelming. So if I increase the anti-gravity, then it can, that was the wrong direction. But this puzzle is all about playing with anti-gravity, because it wants me to, it doesn't want me to use any electricity, but I should like glide up kind of. So if I don't use a thruster, the only way I can move up and down is by using gravity. So as I say, like all the puzzles are a little bit, like you have to think also physics and stuff like that.